Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hey guys.
Hello.
Hello, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Okay. I think we can wait maybe another minute. I'm just waiting. See if Sush. Yeah, I'm just waiting for Sushant to join the meeting. Things he mentioned.
Who are we waiting for? Sorry.
Oh, I'm just waiting for a new contributor to to join the meeting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, I think we can start. So firstly, we have the board Ratify to CNCF sandbox project. Yeah, so we already accept to join the CNCF sandbox project, but we see there is an issue that tracks the everything for onboarding to the sandbox. Hey, Fema, do you know if we can help on on this onboarding process?
Actually, I created another tracking issue in Ratify corp repository because we cannot mark the checklist on CNCF repository. I can share the link in our chat. I just shared the issue that I created for tracking CNCF onboarding list on Ratify community side. Yeah. Here we can mark the work items as completed if we have progress on it. This is the whole checklist for the onboarding process. And I'm currently working on the second section, which needs the actions from our maintainers. But after looking at this checklist, there's no actionable items from our engineers. So I think that our PMs can handle it at this moment. There's just some branding and domain transferring work. We have to make sure that the trademark, domain, and also the website have been transferred to CNCF. I'm working on the second part, contribute and transfer. others will be just some review, and other work items will be completed by CNCF.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, thank you so much. So also I remember we also discussed that the Ratify committee meeting should be on the CNCF soon. Are you going to handle it as well? Oh,
Regarding the Zoom meeting rule, I think we may need to raise a ticket to request CNCF help us create a dedicated account for Ratify as well. I think this is quite similar to how Notation and Auras run their community meetings. I didn't start filing a ticket to CNCF, but I think I can make it.
okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Ooh. Just notice that we have a new member, Andy joined. And also
Yeah,
Sajay joined.
There's two of us here from Brocked. We had a PR open that we wanted to talk about today about tag and digest mutation. So it's Andy and Sushant here.
Thank you. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Andy. So I'm the security lead here at Rocked. And we started rolling out Ratify, hence the PR with some of the challenges that we found here. And I'll let Sushant introduce himself.
Yep. Hey guys, I'm Sushant. I've got the proposal for tag and digest coexisting. The problem we had was developers complaining that they couldn't figure out what the tag was that they deployed, and for various reasons, because of the registry policy or whatever, this was becoming a big issue. So I've got the proposal open, and I hope we discuss this in this meeting.
Yeah, so Sushant's on my team. He's implementing this. Nice to meet everyone.
Thank you. Okay, next item, V1.3 thing. Yeah, we have the milestone. We have only one issue remained. I remember. Okay, no, it's one. Yeah, we have an open PR. So I already approved the PR. I'm just waiting for the actual test passing. So once that's done, I will merge this PR. So for the code change, it looks good. So we are on track on the V1.3 milestone. And yeah, and Juncheng will drive the release this week so that we can cut the release tomorrow. Yeah. Okay, next one. Okay, next one, the proposal for the tag and digest. Sushan, do you want to host a meeting so you can share the screen? Or maybe I can share screen you.
We're on my laptop, so feel free to keep sharing, I think, because I don't actually have it open this very second.
Okay.
So the summary of it, and then we can go through the description in detail. But we've been pushing out Ratify, and one of the teams that we have, our infra teams here, are using the tags in some of their observability. And what they've asked is if we can make the tags remain in place when Ratify goes and looks up and does the mutation to get the digest. So Sushant put a proposal together that he'll walk you through in terms of what we think that could look like. We saw some of the comments come in overnight, so thank you for those.
Yeah. So basically, as Bin Lee suggested, that digest is basically the ultimate source of truth, and we want that to be there. We only want tags for engineers and developers to be able to figure out what they've deployed. So it's basically a beautification project of sorts and shouldn't have any impact or very little impact. So if we look at the problem scenario, so for example, yeah, I've basically explained the user scenario on what the user wants to do. And our problem here is on our observability, people are looking at tags on which images they've deployed. And then all of a sudden they started seeing digests and they couldn't figure out what was going on. So that's why I think having tags will help people. The solution is going to be a very, very simple one. The tag and digest combination is already supported by major container frameworks like Docker and Podman. As much as I researched, most of the big ones already support this, so this shouldn't be a problem. If you scroll down a little bit, so the proposed change is to basically add another config on our Helm chart and add a new code block on the Golang side to fix it. So I've proposed retain mutated tag. So if people enable this in the Helm chart, then basically our Go code should look this up and stop stripping out the tag. So currently what's happening is we are using the publicly available specification repo, which provides us with parsing the image formats, and I think it's doing it through the OCI technique where it basically strips down the tags and only uses digest, which is meant to happen. And the thing we've stumbled across here is the exact opposite. Therefore, this will be a optional feature, and by default it will be false, so people don't have unwanted changes on their side. And this, people can basically turn this on if they want digest.
They want tags.
Sorry, if they want tags. And so the current config is very simple, as in if you set provider.enable mutation to true, then it, and that's the default, it will start mutating images immediately after Ratify is deployed. But I've proposed that we have a provider.mutation, block which will have sub configs. So if we ever have further, additional configs that we want on the mutation side, we can keep adding to that instead of having more and more main configs. And as Akash said that for version 2 we need both, I've actually changed that in a new commit if you scroll a little bit further down. Yeah. So in this table, we can see what the expected output of this new config will be, and it's nothing new. It's a very, very simple feature. So if we've got retain mutated tag to false, which is what's running currently, it basically mutates all the tags to digest, strips out the tag, and we'll have the ultimate source of truth, which are the digests. However, if we turn the feature on, then it will, if there's no tags, the default tag is going to be latest, and then it will, as it's doing now, it will basically add both the latest and digest instead of stripping out the latest and figuring out the digest for the latest tag. For any other images which have tags in them, we basically just keep retaining it. For images with both tags and digest in the incoming thing, then we don't change anything. So the comment that Akash made was, digest should be the source of truth. Why are we mutating the tag to digest again if we've got both tags in it? For example, at the second last column, you can see docker.io nginx v1.2.4 as well as the SHA. So in my initial brainstorm, I thought that what if the tag and the digests don't match? So what if version 1.2.4 isn't actually SHA YYYY, and what if it's SHA XXXS? So I wanted to provide another additional config so that they could, mutate the tags again. But yeah, seems like that's a bad idea. So we'll basically just let it flow as is. and the tag may be wrong, but it really depends on the customer on what they want, because we're at the end it's deploying digests. So yeah, I hope that was, everyone understood what that was. So yeah, if you scroll, yeah. So in that code block, currently we've got enable mutation to true. And I've changed that so that we will add a new mutation block. However, in the next release, we'll basically comment out the enable true and leave the existing enable mutation to true as is. However, we will tell them that it's deprecated and please use mutation.enable instead. And if both are used, then the main one will be preferred. And maybe on the next major release, we will completely strip out enable mutation and only have mutation.enable. In case of performance impact, because it's basically adding more if-else clauses and not doing regex on existing tags, I don't think there's going to be any, there's going to be very little to do, because we're not making any network connections and not doing any network exchanges. So yeah, and backward compatibility, we will have backward compatibility, and we will keep supporting the existing enable mutation to true. Yep, so that was it. Anyone has any questions, comments?
I have one quick question. So for the last example, I wonder if we should add the latest tag, or we just keep the the digest.
Yeah, I added it because the config retain mutated tag is set to true, so people maybe want to explicitly want to add the tag. However, yeah, it really depends on perspective, I think.
I would say it's valid. I think you're ultimately not retaining, or latest is implied, I guess, as per the spec. So I don't know if we really want to add it or don't want to add it. I'm not sure it changes much there. One of the options that Sushant discussed before proposing this was, rather than having a Boolean flag here for retain mutated tag, I suggested to potentially have that as a string enum instead, where you can potentially have different behaviors that you support. And then you can potentially have two different key values there that you offer to people, so they can choose which behavior they want. Whether to retain the tag, whether not to retain the tag, whether to fill in the latest tag if it doesn't exist. Because there's a couple of variations of this where people might have different opinions on what they want or how they want it to work. Where a Boolean flag is not really the best, you end up with lots of Booleans if you keep adding more variations. But yeah, if the word that we use is retain, I would definitely agree, I think, on not introducing latest there and just leaving it blank.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the same thing with the first example there, the first one in retain mutated tag. We're deploying docker.io/nginx, that image, but we are adding latest. Does that mean that we remove latest here as well? I think latest is implied, so I think latest should be there if the config is set to true.
Yeah, that's valid in this case.
Yeah.
There's a question from Louis on the chat for Akash.
Yeah, I can answer that. So Luis, there shouldn't be any impact because as part of the mutation process, we're already doing a head call to registry to resolve the descriptor. So I think we're just changing the format of the reference returned by the mutation endpoint in Ratify. If there are any extra tag lookups that we look up that we want to enable in the future, that may add extra calls, and which would add extra time overhead. But I think based on the current proposal, there shouldn't be any issues there.
Yeah, my previous brainstorm, I did come up with other variations. So for example, if we want to actually tag, if there's a digest already present, then we'd have to go and get the descriptor and add the tag, which would add a big overhead, but I think that's too much for now. So simple. Do you plan to use?
Yeah, we do expect to use it in production, and we actually picked it up in production because suddenly the observability for production started failing. The monitors that people have in Datadog in our infra team, because they're using the tags as a way to kind of track what's deployed and what's out there.
But yeah, the answer would be everywhere. If the feature is enabled, it should be in dev testing production, and we expect it to be everywhere.
One question from Sadia is, what's the output for digest-based deployments?
But digest-based deployments, it wouldn't change anything,
Yeah.
right? That's why I think the suggestion to change it into a string rather than a boolean is one of the ideas that we don't have a need for, but other people may want in the future, is if they do a digest deployment, they may want to look up the tag and then go and add the tag back. But I'd suspect that'd be a lot rarer than the situation that we have today, which is people using a tag and being mutated into a digest.
Yeah.
So we would leave that alone. If you have a digest, it would stay just a digest. We wouldn't touch it.
Yeah. So if you scroll to the table, where the table was, yeah, then over there, if you've got if you've got retain mutated to false with only a digest, then it goes as is, right? And if you've got if you have retain mutated tag to true with a digest coming in, the default feature is that it doesn't even do any of the calls because it detects a digest with the regex and just lets it, it goes as is. So that's what would happen.
It's actually a good pickup on the earlier latest discussion because the mapping in the last row is actually incorrect or could be incorrect in that having Nginx SHA-256 doesn't necessarily imply that SHA-256 maps to latest. So there would need to be a lookup there. So you definitely can't do that.
Yeah. So I think the last one is absolutely good catch.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was leading to, because the lack of a tag does not mean that you know the tag. It only means that, I mean, we can default after the latest form because multiple reasons and history of latest, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So the exact discussion we had right now, right? If there's a tag, nothing will happen regardless of what config is set.
Cool.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm not sure of the process here, but I'm assuming that we go back and update the proposal based on the discussion that we just had. Changes to string key, go clean up the table there to not do the latest lookups in some of these suggestions. And add some of the extra notes around the performance.
Yeah, that would be great if you could just make the changes to the design, and then we'd be happy to review any implementation PR once that's ready as well. I think there was one comment Binbin had around how we want to propagate the config down to Ratify. So I think the current proposal was to pass in some sort of flag in the deployment template to the HTTP server command. There's also an alternative that Binbin proposed, which was via feature flag registration. Binbin, did you want to talk a little bit about that, and if you had a preference on which way?
Oh yes, that's just a different approach. I can show our current implementation. Like, okay,
Yeah, so regarding that, I think it should, because mutation is an already existing implementation, right? And all we're doing is adding another config to it. It's not a completely different feature as is. So my view on that is that I think it should be part of the Helm chart and not a feature flag, and should just go to the HTTP server because it makes more sense. For feature flagging, I would expect it to be like a bigger feature that I'd, whether enable or disable. But as this is a very small change, I personally, I don't think it should be a feature, but yeah.
Yes, that makes sense. I feel if it's a completely new feature, I would rather put it under the feature flags. But yes, as you mentioned, this is already existing feature, and we just add some like more functionality. So probably that also makes sense. And for both approaches, I don't have a strong like preference on them. I think both should be fine.
Is there kind of a policy written up somewhere in terms of when feature flags should be used or not, when not at this point?
For feature flags, we usually when we want to do some experimental features, then we would add that under the feature flags.
Yeah.
But this is not an experimental feature, so yeah, we can just follow the way you proposed.
Cool.
No. Anyone have more questions or feedback?
Hey, Andy and Sushant, I have a question that
Mhm.
might not be directly related to the tag to digest mutation. I'm
Mhm.
curious on which artifact that you are currently verifying with Ratify,
Mhm.
signature or vulnerability report or something else. I want to dig into your scenarios.
Yeah. Yeah, we have two at the moment, SBOM and VDR. So we used the Seraph, and then what's the other one? They're both Seraph.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
I don't remember exactly. But we're using Sneak at the moment to do the scanning. And they generate Seraph. We've identified an issue there where Sneak is missing some of the fields that Ratify is expecting in the Seraph format, but we've kind of hacked that on the Sneak side by introducing an extra label or field there. But the idea is effectively to use SBOMs to block things like the exit utils that recently happened before there was a CVE for it. But then typically to be able to block any critical vulnerabilities being introduced in the cluster from a VDR report. One of the things that we looked at was using Cyclone, and I was actually going to ask a question if there's a history around the Cyclone format being supported here, because it's something I'd be interested in adding for some of the other scanners or for some things like CBOMs that I'm considering for the future. So cryptographic bill of materials. Go, CJ.
I think rallied around SPDX. There is to expand your SPDX because we've been discussing from OpenSSF also as another option. So I mean, I don't think there's any strong attachment to SPDX just because from a project standpoint, it would be good to see if you want to explore Cyclone DSX as an option, and because the artifact type is all that Ratify pivots on, we will introduce a verifier that understands Cyclone DX independently and can be built off, in the same way. I don't see any concern at this point. It seems like a viable option.
Yeah, we'll let the group know, and if we do have the time for it in the business or on the weekend, expect a PR. But it's something that we've been considering as we looked at different tools, and that is the one that we're using today. So it's Seraph and SPDX. Yeah.
You mentioned another tool, Snake, that you are using to scan your container images. Is Snake an open source project or a proprietary or a commercial product?
Sneak is a commercial product. They're a commercial vendor that's been around for a while. We adopted Sneak a couple of years ago because they really push into.
Actually, my question is that
Sorry, what was the question?
Oh, sorry,
Feynman, I think we lost you.
my connection is. How about now?
Yeah. We can hear you.
It's good right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm wondering that the Sneak, the tool you mentioned that you are using to scan your container images and produce SBOM. So is that tool an open source tool or it's a commercial software?
It's commercial software.
Oh, Think. Okay.
Yeah, it's commercial software. We adopted it many years ago because it does offer a lot of developer IDE integrations where developer in the IDE can see what's going on. But we have found that their ability to generate SBOMs and VDRs is quite limited. They don't support a lot of formats. They have some challenges with different architecture types and so on. So we're actually moving to the more industry standard SIFT, GRIPE, Trivy options at the moment and evaluating those.
Yeah, and if we've got time, maybe.
Okay, I got it. Thanks.
Yeah, and if we have time, we maybe also add Sneak support for, whatever
Yeah.
the type of format that Sneak results in, because currently Ratify only supports the Trivy format or the GRIPE format. So we had to hack around with the results from Sneak to make it work, but it doesn't look like a very difficult change to make. It's just time and effort.
Cool. Any other questions or?
And thanks for sharing your use case. For all of these suggestions, we'd definitely be open if you want to open an issue on GitHub, and then we can kind of take it from there as well, to help out or provide suggestions as well.
Yeah, I'll check with Howard on my team, who was looking into that and the challenges there. I don't recall if he created an issue or not, but I'll follow that up. Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. So let's go back to agenda. Okay, so that's everything on our agenda. Wonder if anyone have new topics want to discuss? Okay, yeah, thank you everyone, and welcome Sushan and Andy.
Thank you. Nice to meet everyone. Thanks for the great work you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.